What up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Battle in the Trenches. I'm Steve Catalano. I'm with Ryan McGinley. I'm Steve 2.0 on Twitter, and he's Bootleg Fantasy. Thanks again for checking out the channel. Subscribe to the channel right now and like this video if you like what we're spitting out. We're giving you the starts and sits for every week in the NFL. And as you're approaching playoffs, you're not going to want to miss a video. We're going to give you those awesome starts and sits that are going to help you win your matchups. So, like I said, it's week 12. I can't believe it's week 12 already. The fantasy season's about to be over. I'm about to miss the playoffs in some of my leagues and make them in some, so I'm excited for the playoff run. But, man, the season flew by. I'm pretty sad about it.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I'd like to thank everybody who tuned in last week. It was by far our most successful episode. Two, make sure that I don't say I mean maybe every other word, because that was a huge issue when I played it back. Was I 2,000 of the views we had? Maybe. But I definitely said I mean a lot, so I'm going to try to work on that. You got to be better every single week. That's what we're trying to do here for you. And, I mean, I said it again. I'm looking forward to at least giving you guys the information that I'm presenting, and I'm excited about this week. Hopefully everyone makes the playoffs, and I hope that I can help you. And make sure that you ask start-sit questions in the comments. I'll make sure that I get back to every single one of you.
Yeah, Ryan got every single one. Super responsive last week. So if you got a question, drop it in the comments. Without further ado, let's get into meat and potatoes. Last week, week 11 accuracy, we were 75% on the quarterback, so we definitely improved on the quarterback. Unfortunately, we took a hit on the other positions. We were 50% for running back and 50% for wide receivers and 50% for tight end. So those numbers are down. We don't give a lot of starts and sits for each position, so it's not a super huge number. It's 4 out of 8, 3 out of 6, 6 out of 8, stuff like that. But let's try to get those numbers up this week. Get all the positions up equal. Without further ado, let's get into the doctor's office, talk about some injuries in the fantasy football world and in the regular football world. Matthew Stafford, news is out. There's no timetable for his return, so Jeff Driscoll will be continued to be rolled out for the Lions, and he's played pretty good against a couple good defenses in a row. He'll go out this week and try to have a third good game in a row, and I think he's actually a decent streaming option this week. Unfortunately, if you own Matt Stafford, it's becoming kind of risky to keep him on your roster. He probably won't help you in your playoff run. He might not even play again this year. So if you have Matt Stafford and you need to drop him, you might want to consider it. A player who got hurt in the Monday night game, fantasy football superstar Tyreek Hill, pulled a hamstring, left that game early. Probably, messed up a lot of people's matchups coming in at the end of the week there. How do you think this affects the Chiefs, overall?
Yeah. So the Chiefs already have like 7 guys that run sub 4.4s. So losing Tyreek Hill in the grand scheme of things doesn't sound like a lot, but Tyreek Hill's, he's probably dynasty wide receiver 1 or 2 at this point, the way that some of these guys are playing. So long term, it shouldn't be that crazy. Tyreek Hill should bounce back, but these weeks are the main parts of the year where you're expecting the guy that, depending on when you drafted, you probably got him in the second or third round. If you drafted earlier, you weren't sure what his situation was going to be. You probably got him a little later, so he's been a steal for you. But with a hamstring for a guy like this, they're not going to rush him back when they've got eyes already on the playoffs. So I think Demarcus Robinson, I think Sammy Watkins, and Byron Pringle actually got some snaps again this week. So I was excited about him. He's my guy. When he's in there, I'm excited to see Pringle get out and active. So I think the Tyreek Hill fans or users of Tyreek Hill should probably look elsewhere this week. I wouldn't expect him to suit up.
So you do think he misses the game?
I mean, it's a tough injury for a guy that's known for speed.
Hey, the Chiefs are I don't know. They're not the same Chiefs we expected to see at this point of the year.
Pat Mahomes is definitely still an elite quarterback.
They need Tyreek.
It's not like his skill set's any less than it was last year. The problem is, I think that teams are kind of realizing what they're about as an offense. Travis Kelce was very effective without Tyreek Hill last week. He had a touchdown. He was over 20 fantasy points. And they're going to need him to step up in the next couple weeks, especially with Mahomes still kind of laboring on that knee. Mm-hmm. So the Chiefs are kind of murky right now. Damian Williams also got hurt. I'm not feeling great about their short term, but the last couple of weeks of the season, a couple of these guys might be able to save you.
Yeah, they need Tyreek Hill to win is how I see it. And go long term. James Conner left the game with an AC joint. the same shoulder injury that's been bothering him. Apparently, it's not as injured as it was before, but it continues to be a problem. So if he does play this week, it's one of those guys that if you roll out, it's becoming kind of risky for him to even start, and you'd have to expect that they're going to probably limit his role if he does kind of play. But this is never good, especially at this point of the season where every matchup matters, and putting a guy like James Conner in your lineup who might go out in the first quarter can definitely affect you. And of course, we want James Conner to get well and whatnot, but we got to report the injuries, and we got to respond as fantasy football players. Another running back who is nurturing a shoulder is Jordan Howard on your Eagles. Can you give us the injury update on him?
Yeah, so it doesn't seem like it's great for Jordan Howard. When you go into a bye week and you played the week before, and then somehow you have the bye week and then miss the next game, and then your team brings in another running back that they've had before, that they have a wrinkle in his contract for J.J. that, hey, you're pretty much a restricted free agent after this year. We get the first crack at re-signing you. It's kind of concerning for the guy that's already in-house who's in a contract year. Jordan Howard seemingly, we were told it was a stinger. That's definitely not the case. He toughed it out against his old team, but it's been pretty quiet on this front. And with Miles Sanders losing touches in the second half against the Patriots, allegedly there's been some rumblings that he went into concussion protocol. So the Eagles need Jordan Howard to show up, but the fact that we haven't heard much on Jordan Howard so far is slightly concerning. So I would at least look at J.J. on your waiver wire. I wouldn't say, hey, pick him up and start him, but the fact is Jordan Howard isn't probably even 80% at this point.
Yeah, J.J. not a guy I want to pick up and put into my lineup right away, but some people are in some deep leagues and some deep situations, so might have to do that. And lastly, Marlon Mack broke his hand, had surgery. Super unfortunate. He was having a really great game, his best game in a while. And, we just lose kind of, he's not a superstar, but he's definitely in an RB2 category, and we kind of saw him, possibly be able to get on a roll, string together a couple of games in a row. But unfortunately, he breaks his hand. I don't really see him having any impact for the rest of the fantasy season, but, it's a hand injury. Yep. I guess it could heal quick and whatnot, but getting full workload and whatnot, it's more of a maybe he'll return in week 16 kind of thing. And at that point, I don't even know if the Colts should bring him back. I haven't heard any long-term. I don't think there's really a firm timetable on his return. But the way I see it, he broke a bone. They're not going to roll him out there right away. So you're going to have to look elsewhere. So you're going to look to the waiver wire, like for Jordan, what's his name? Jonathan Williams and Jordan Wilkins and those guys like that. They already announced there's going to be a committee. We don't really know what that means. So you throw one of these guys in your lineup, it's going to be a risk. But you have to go with that. So no more Marlon Mack for right now. Super unfortunate. But let's get into the starts and sits, what everyone comes here to watch. Let's head into the quarterback position right away. And a quarterback I'm starting, and I can't believe it, I'm starting Baker Mayfield at Miami. He's strung together a couple good games in a row. Unfortunate for Nick Chubb owners and guys like that, they're not running the ball on the goal line anymore after they continue to get stuffed. So Baker he's efficient in the red zone, and he's getting Jarvis Landry going, And unfortunately not really Odell. Last week we saw Odell kind of start the game pretty hot, but then he definitely cooled off, and they didn't really get him going. Jarvis Landry kind of took over. A lot of passes to Kareem Hunt, but hey, whatever works for Baker, and he's going against a really bad Miami defense who just let Josh Allen tear them up. So I'll put Baker Mayfield in my lineup, especially if I need a spot start and he's on the waiver. And I'm starting Drew Brees coming off a big game against Tampa. Now Tampa is definitely, no defense to really, shine about having a good game against, but they're going back home, playing Carolina, a divisional matchup. Brees usually plays good against Carolina, and Carolina's defense is definitely not playing well. They didn't have a good game against Atlanta, and Brees is coming off a great game. And Michael Thomas is continuing to roll. They have Alvin Kamara back. He's getting his full workload. So I think this team is about to go on a streak. A lot of people are kind of worrying about the Saints. Not worrying, but, they're not the top one or two team, that they maybe were considered at the early part of the year. But I think they're definitely going to roll back, and I think Brees is about to hit his stride. So those are my quarterback starts. Ryan, your quarterback starts.
Yeah, so my main guy that I'd like to start is Jacoby Brissett. That team is at a crossroads. There's the playoff race is in front of them, and they're playing the Houston Texans, who have seemingly been relatively poor the last couple weeks. I mean, I haven't liked what I've seen out of the Houston Texans since J.J. Watt went down. So I think Jacoby Brissett's a solid play, especially with Marlon Mack going down. We might see more Nyheim Hines than we used to see. And let's get a little Zach Pascal going. I mean, Zach Pascal in his limited role looked great, and then he got some solid opportunities with Brian Hoyer under center. So I expect the Colts to kind of light a fuse and look to be a better team this week, and that's especially with their new QB in Jacoby Brissett. I'm also starting Jimmy G, who has to have a statement game. We've been told that this is a cream of the crop team in the NFC, and they've got the Green Bay Packers, and that's going to be a shootout. I don't see how that can't be a shootout just because the lights are going to be bright. It's a huge game, and I really like the fact that Emmanuel Sanders is going to have some type of young cornerback on him. So it's either going to be Kevin King or Jair Alexander. So I think he takes advantage of them at some point. So that's only in Jimmy G's favor. So I'm starting Jimmy G if you're strapped at the quarterback position.
Alexander and King are very respectable corners.
They're great corners, but they're young corners, Steve.
You're right.
And
Emmanuel Sanders is a veteran.
Emmanuel Sanders,
yes.
And he might put a guy on skates or two. I mean, Kevin King, I love how he plays. Yeah. He's cocky. He's a cocky dude.
I agree.
Emmanuel Sanders might let him hear it once or twice. So
I got to be biased. I wish Emmanuel Sanders was on the Packers. He would tear them up in practice. It'd be great. But anyway, Jimmy G, I like that call. It's gonna be the game of the week. I'm looking forward to it. I hate that I gotta wait all the way till Sunday night to watch it, but I'm definitely gonna be glued to the TV on that one. Some quarterback sits. I'm sitting Jameis Winston at Atlanta, and a couple weeks ago I would never have thought that I would be saying this with this matchup coming up. He's a guy I grabbed specifically for this matchup and a couple matchups he has coming up. But Atlanta's defense has been pretty decent the last couple weeks out of nowhere. I don't know what they did. And Jameis has been turning the ball over more than anyone in the league, statistically, the most interceptions. And he's a guy you really can't... He's a guy I have in one of my lineups, and I'm considering picking up the Atlanta defense and then sitting Jameis Winston, specifically for the reason that I think he's going to toss him 3 or 4 interceptions. And
for sure.
That's just crazy to me. And Jameis continues to throw for 300 yards, but with all those turnovers... takes away multiple touchdowns basically in the game. So I'm sitting Jameis Winston, and I'm sitting Jared Goff versus Baltimore, and for similar reasons as Baltimore's defense has been absolutely surging, especially since they got Marcus Peters. And they, like I said, they've just been rolling. Lamar Jackson has been rolling, and the Ravens are just rolling over everyone. And they're kind of the front runner for the best team in the league right now. It's pretty obvious Lamar Jackson is just carrying them MVP season. Sorry, Russell Wilson. I mean, you guys are real close. But Jared Goff just isn't playing well. He's missing Robert Woods. They're just not efficient. Todd Gurley isn't the same guy. There's something with that offense right now. Coming off that game against the Bears, that it was definitely a low scoring game. It's kind of what we expected. But until we see something from Jared Goff that is worth getting excited about, strings together a week or two, and at this point it's too late in the season to take a chance on him. He's on your bench
for sure. Yeah, and the guy that I'm sitting that. He's due for a bad game, and that is Derek Carr. Derek Carr's got the New York Jets susceptible to the pass, nonetheless. But Derek Carr is playing too well. He's going to realize he's Derek Carr at some point. But I do like the pass rush for the New York Jets. They're a very strong pass rush. They've got a decent linebacking core. And they got Jamal Adams. I mean, Jamal Adams is a freak up top. So I expect Derek Carr to have a little bit of a clunker this week, just because he's not my guy. I'm always gonna lean towards sitting Derek Carr, and I'm also sitting another guy that I actually like as a human, Danny Dimes. I'm sitting Danny Dimes this week against the Bears because they're falling apart a little bit. Those New York Football Giants. I know they had a bye, but I think the fun with Danny Dimes is over. They've got a tough defense. Khalil Mack has to show up. I understand the Bears are reeling, but they need a win more than any team in the NFL right now, and the best way for them to do that is to take over on defense, and Daniel Jones seems to be the guy that's going to be the victim of that.
Yeah, Chicago, they need to keep winning, and it seems if they lost this game to the Giants somehow, that'd be it for them for sure.
Yeah, it's over. Their season is teetering on done now, but they need a win this week.
With Minnesota and Green Bay so far ahead of the pack, and they're in the same division, they're going to have to grab that second wild card spot, and they're going to need to, basically win out. And I don't see that happening right now with that coaching and quarterback situation. So, they got to take it week by week, but I could see them stepping it up in this game, against the Giants and Daniel Jones, who's very, very turnover prone. So he's definitely not going to help you in that category. Let's go over to the running backs. Running backs I'm starting Carlos Hyde versus Indianapolis. Now, he didn't have that great of a game last week. He kind of had a large or a big touchdown run, like a 41-yard touchdown run that kind of saved his stat line. If you look at his stat line, it looked like he had a much better game than he did. But the way I see it is the Houston Texans are struggling, and they're going to have to run the ball to open everything up. They're peppering DeAndre Hopkins with so many targets, it's unreal, like 36% of the team's targets, which he can handle, but they got to open things up, not just for him, but for the rest of the receivers like Kenny Stills and Darren Fells. So they're going to need to run the ball, and I think it's a get-right game for the run game. So I like Carlos Hyde. And another guy I want to talk about is Kareem Hunt. 17 targets through 2 games, his first 2 games back this season, 13 receptions. He is on the field a lot, and it leaves Nick Chubb owners very worried, like myself, that he's getting no work in the pass game. He had 1 target last game, didn't catch it. So he had 92 yards on the ground, and that was it. So, and Kareem Hunt's on the field for over 50% of the snaps. They have a lot of multi-running back sets, and it's not what you like to see. And they're going against Miami, and like I said, Buffalo just tore him up. I think this is the game that Kareem Hunt kind of goes off, and a lot of it is through the air, continues through the air, but I think he gets in the end zone this time. I think maybe this is the game that Freddie Kitchen rules Kareem Hunt out as the primary kind of 10-zone running back, which might be different from what they're used to, but I think they're going to keep riding Kareem Hunt, and I think his role is going to grow even more. So this might be his breakout game. So if you got him, you might want to consider starting him, especially in like a 12-man league or deeper.
I mean, I've got no complaints there. I think I'm starting him in a 10-man league. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, Nick Chubb is kind of getting the Derrick Henry of yesteryear treatment right now, where he's not seeing any targets, which is definitely concerning. But it's also kind of making their offense feel like it's going to happen. So I'm hoping they figure it out a little bit. I hope Chubb gets a couple more targets. I hope Kareem Hunt gets a couple more carries. It evens out a little bit. And they're going to slowly turn to Kareem Hunt more because they need to see what they have in him. So I do like that start a lot.
I like the offense, so I definitely like the 2 running back sets. I think they should, but I do think they should continue to toss a few targets to Chubb so it does mix it up, so they know they're not just throwing it to Kareem Hunt every time he's on the field with Chubb. But Kareem Hunt is he's a damn good receiver, definitely. Yeah. He made a couple of really good catches in the last game. Not just those short dump offs, 20-yard pass and whatnot. So they definitely know what they have in Kareem Hunt. John Dorsey drafted him, so he's on the team. Like you said, they need to give him a look. But I don't see either of these running backs going anywhere. I think they might just this is their offense. 2 running backs on the field most of the time. So unfortunately, if you drafted Nick Chubb in the first round, we kind of all suspected at this point of the year it was a risk you're going to have to take, but hopefully it doesn't eat into his production too much to where he's not a guy you can rely on your lineup.
Yeah. So I've got a start in a very ugly game, and I've got a start in the game of the week, Steve. So I'm starting Bo Scarbrough against the Washington football team because that game is pretty much a preseason game, it feels like. Dwayne Haskins looked terrible for Washington last week. We don't know what Detroit is going to do actually on offense at all, at quarterback, at running back. But I think after a strong showing from Scarbrough, that they have to give him the first crack. And I really liked what he did. It's kind of shocking that he was out there. He was on the practice squad for the Lions this year, but he's bounced around teams, and he started on the Cowboys, and he's just kind of been on different practice squads, and he finally got a crack. And we saw what he did at Alabama a little bit this past week. Got in the end zone twice. It was actually really cool to see how well he played, and I think that they're going to have to rely on him heavily again. So he's definitely a star for me, especially like a flex spot, because the other running backs there have left a ton of meat on the bone. There's a lot of fab money wasted on the other guys. It's Bo Scarbrough season. And I'm starting Tevin Coleman against your Green Bay Packers, Steve, because I was taught that Tevin Coleman was the pass-catching back in Atlanta, and we're kind of seeing a little bit of that right now. He's kind of like a cheeky little stack with Jimmy G, because they shouldn't be expensive plays. And Tevin Coleman is explosive out of the backfield. I mean, if Kevin King walks the walk like he talks the talk, I think they're going to have to rely on the running backs too. So I think Tevin Coleman should be a solid flex play as well.
All right, it's week 1. It's the preseason,
Right.
and you're looking forward. And now you're reading a headline for week 12 in the future. Bo Scarborough leads the Detroit Lions to a huge victory over the Washington Redskins.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that like I fast forwarded a couple years in Madden franchise mode because. I mean,
a couple years ago, like
yeah, exactly. Bo Scarborough, he was a freak in college. I mean, he was right after that long lineage of stud running backs. He was after, Trent Richardson, who was an elite running back in college. Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram, Kenyon Drake,
TJ Yeldon. Yeah, I mean, they always got someone. I mean, but, he's there. I didn't even know he was on the Lions till this week, honestly. I'm apparently not that in-depth in the fantasy football.
He was activated I think, right before the game, pretty much, and got the start and didn't squander the opportunity. It pretty much comes down to what are you going to do when your name gets called, and he answered the bell. And that was awesome. Alabama running backs are taking over this league.
He was running downhill. He looked like a Mark Ingram type, so I definitely liked what I saw. Got in the end zone a couple times, so that was great. Running back sits. I'm sitting our man, Ron Jones, at Atlanta. I don't like this game for the Buccaneers, as I've said, and especially if they're down against Atlanta, if Atlanta's able to pick off Jameis a few times. I don't see them running the ball a lot, and that's who Ron Jones is. And even though a couple weeks ago, I know it's hard for you to keep a straight face with the Ron Jones. He got the targets and whatnot, but hey, what are the Bucs doing? Last week, Peyton Barber gets a bunch of touches. He gets in the end zone. It's too hard to predict. I don't like Ron Jones in this game. And I'm sitting, we talked about him earlier, James Conner against Cincinnati. Unfortunately, this matchup is super hot. And if James Conner was, if he was fully healthy and we knew exactly what was going to happen, he was going to play the whole game with no injury risk, he'd probably be, top 3 running back going into the week. But because we don't know exactly if he's going to play or not at this point in the week, and if he does play, or even if he does play, we need to completely temper expectations for what his final stat line is going to be, because he could go out early again with this lingering shoulder issue. If you ask me, I think he should miss this game, and I think they should roll out Jalen Samuels. I think Jalen Samuels is completely competent enough, especially out in the pass game. They don't need James Conner in this game against Cincinnati. They're so bad. So if you ask me, I think he's out. But if he plays and you're in playoff contention and you need to win, you need to seriously consider your other options and see what's out there, because he's a huge liability in your lineup.
Yeah. I honestly think that Jalen Samuel is just as good, maybe if not better, than James Conner. I know it's kind of a hot take, but Jalen Samuel runs the offense great. I think that James Conner was more of a product of just volume last year. It was similar to Melvin Gordon a couple years ago when Danny Woodhead went down. It was just the fact that there was nobody else to take the role in a role that was huge. So now that they've got a couple guys there that can do what they needed out of Lev Bell or Danny Woodhead, they're kind of figuring out how to play it rather than just riding the only guy that they have. So Jalen Samuels should definitely be in your lineups if you have him. And
bonus start.
Bonus start. Bonus sit.
Well, bonus start for Samuels.
Him too. Yeah, him too. So my sits, Sony Michel against Dallas, because I don't think that Sony Michel really he fits in the offense for New England, right? But there's times where I feel like they're forcing Sony Michel, and I think against a team with great linebackers like Dallas has, they're not going to do that. I mean, they know how to beat teams like this. It's going to be a superior head coach against an inferior one. And I don't think Sony Michel is going to be a huge part of their plans. They're not going to run directly at Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith.
I was going to make him a start out of nowhere. Just I was like, oh, maybe it's a Sony Michel game.
Because everyone else is like, you know what, you shouldn't start him. So, start
you have no
Sony
idea.
Michel.
This could be a game he gets in the end zone twice.
See,
we have no idea.
I thought that, but Michael Bennett revenge game, question mark?
Yeah, true.
I mean, Jonders isn't on the show currently, so we're allowed to say revenge games here. Michael Bennett going to be clogging the hole, so I don't like Sony Michel even a little bit just because he doesn't do a lot for me.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting one of your boys because I'm just attacking you this week because
Come on,
it's
man.
easy enough. I'm sitting Jamaal Williams this week just because I don't think that his 2-touchdown nonsense is going to keep up. Devontae Adams is back. Aaron Jones is by far the superior running back there. And I think that Aaron Jones is better in the pass game, and it's going to be a shootout. I think Aaron Jones is going to be the main benefactor of that. I don't think Jamaal Williams sees as much time as he has. Aaron Jones is now healthy enough that he had a bye week. It should be majority Aaron Jones. Jamaal Williams has kind of gotten lucky the last couple weeks with multiple touchdowns on seemingly ridiculous catches and like a couple like weird those flip pass things that the NFL likes doing, but that's not something that I see as a consistent product, and I think that it's going to be a shootout. So Aaron Jones, not Jamaal Williams.
See, you know nothing about the Packers because Jamaal Williams will probably get 70% of the
Yeah,
snaps,
I mean,
and he will have a huge
listen,
game. So,
do I have Aaron Jones in a couple weeks? Yes. Am I trying to talk it into existence? Yes. So,
he's gonna. They're both. I think they'll both have decent games.
Yeah,
mostly Aaron Jones, though, for sure. I'm on your side with that. So, Aaron Jones over Jamaal Williams.
Jamaal Williams, he's a fine toss in the dark play.
Deeper league, 12 man and above. If you need a flex,
if you're in a standard league, sure, he might score. He might score 3 times because who knows what the Packers are doing on offense. No one does.
Sit Jamaal.
Sit Jamaal.
It's a bad matchup. Yeah. Sit Jamaal Williams, the backup running back or the secondary running back in the Green Bay Packers offense. Let's go over to the wide receivers. A guy I love to make as a start every week, and it's Jamison Crowder. 3 straight games of 75 yards or more and a touchdown.
That's nuts.
This is consistency at its finest. And he gets Oakland this week at home. I mean, what a better card to draw to keep the streak going. So I love Jamison Crowder this week. He's a guy you can rely on, especially in those PPR leagues. He's getting you a lot of receptions. So I love Jamison Crowder this week. And Calvin Ridley coming off a huge game last week against Carolina. He gets Tampa this week at home in the Dome. I like Calvin Ridley to keep going. I like Julio this week, obviously, but we don't really talk about those kinds of studs on this show. But Calvin Ridley, I think he's going to keep going. I think...
Shots fired at ESPN. Who should we start, Michael Thomas or Julio Jones?
Michael Thomas.
Yeah,
Michael Thomas. He's a must start every week over anyone in existence. I don't care who's catching balls. But Calvin Ridley, he's a guy you can throw out there, and I think his streak starts now, and he will help you win a fantasy football championship. Hot take. Who are your wide receiver starts?
Well, tale as old as time, Steve. I've got to start somebody against the Philadelphia Eagles defense. I haven't done it yet, so I might as well do it now.
We need a drop. We need a drop for when you start someone against Philly or talk crap about Philly.
Yeah, DK Metcalf against the Birds. 1, the Eagles passed on him. 2, the Eagles are slow. 3, Russell Wilson's good, and I'm out of numbers at 3. But DK Metcalf has been a tremendous wide receiver. I think that Tyler Lockett being iffy really tells you that DK Metcalf should thrive. We didn't even touch on Tyler Lockett earlier, but it seems like he's going to play, but I'm not sure if he's going to play. So, especially if Tyler Lockett's out, fire up DK Metcalf for sure. Yeah. But if he plays, fire him up as well.
Yep,
and
easy.
I'm starting Devante Parker against the Cleveland Browns. I think that game could be high scoring, relatively, just because Ryan Fitzpatrick is a weird mythical creature, and he creates weird wide receiver like twos, and Devante Parker has been that in the last couple of weeks, and he's actually been in wide receiver 1 the last week. He went off when everyone told you to sit him. He let you know that he's here to be an asset to your fantasy team. I think Devante Parker's a great play. He gets the targets, and Ryan Fitzpatrick's no stranger to throwing the ball downfield. He revitalized Deshaun Jackson last year, and I think that Devante Parker could be your wide receiver 2 this week.
Yeah, I like that. Some wide receiver sits. A couple of guys I'm definitely sitting. Well, I guess not definitely, but I'm sitting Michael Gallup against New England, coming off a big game where he got 13 targets and 9 receptions, over 125 yards. You might think I'm going to throw him back in there, but he's going against New England, and they're still really good. So I'm definitely it's a great team. So I think Gallup is a guy that you shouldn't just ride the wave on. I think you should play the matchups, especially with him and Amari Cooper on the other side. and I'm sitting DJ Moore at New Orleans, expecting that Marshawn Lattimore plays. But I mean, we saw what Tampa Bay was able to do even if Marshawn Lattimore didn't play. I know that was Jameis Winston, but this is Kyle Allen. He just threw 4 interceptions. So It's not much of an upgrade, especially since Jameis just threw 4 interceptions. So maybe New Orleans will catch another 4 interceptions. Who knows? But I'm sitting DJ Moore this week. If I can, you're probably not. But temper your expectations.
I was told that Kyle Allen was going to replace Cam Newton, and it was an obvious thing. But
Yeah.
DJ Moore saw 15
Next.
targets.
Who are your wide receiver sits? Come on. Who are your sits?
I'm sitting Golden Tate against Chicago because Danny Dimes against Chicago is just a terrible matchup. I know he's going to have to get the ball out, but I'm out on that. I'm also sitting Kenny Golladay with the fact that I don't think that Matt Stafford's playing. The fact that I don't think Matt Stafford probably won't. Yeah, Matt Stafford probably won't play.
Jeff Driscoll.
Dude, you might as well have me throwing to Kenny G.
You're right. Marvin Jones has kind of been his primary target.
It seems that somehow Kenny Golladay is the down the field guy, even though it should be Marvin Jones. I feel like it should be vice versa. I know Kenny Golladay has kind of the more extreme routes as opposed to the one move Marvin Jones moves. So it seems easier for Marvin Jones to get open with a quarterback that doesn't really know what he's doing. So Marvin Jones has kind of been the security blanket. I don't really like Kenny G just because Jeff Driscoll stinks, and that's why I'm sitting him.
Understandable. All right, it's time for tight end power minute. My tight end start is Ryan Griffin versus Oakland. He's been fairly reliable with Sam Darnold, and now Chris Herndon's out for the season. So going against Oakland, third worst against tight end. So fire up Ryan Griffin. That sounds ugly. And my sit is James Graham at San Francisco. San Francisco is the second best against the position. So I'm sitting James Graham against San Francisco. Who your tight end starts?
James Graham sounds like he invented something. I don't know what he invented, but James Graham, baby. I'm starting Dallas Goedert because I will keep pounding this drum until it comes to fruition that Dallas Goedert will be the tight end 1 in Philadelphia. He's more complete. He had another touchdown this last week. He's the guy that Carson Wentz looks to make a play with yards after the catch, which is disgusting to have a second-year tight end be your yak guy, but that's him. And I'm also sitting Noah Fant against Buffalo because I don't like that matchup. Noah Fant, I got to fade him a little bit. He's been too good recently. His target share is up, but I don't like the fact that they're playing Buffalo. It feels like a bad matchup, so I'm sitting Noah Fant this week.
That was your tight end power minute. We don't spend too much time on them because it's a crapshoot. But, hey, that's what we got for you this week. Thank you for checking out the video. Everyone, good luck in your Week 12 matchups. I hope you all win your matchups and you get closer towards that playoff run. Subscribe to the channel. Like this video. Leave a comment if your start sit. Ryan is very timely. He will respond, and he will make the right call. Hopefully our accuracy ratings are super high, 80% and above for all the positions. Come back and check the video out next week when it really, really matters. Thank you.